The pre-dawn air at Bagram Airfield tasted like dust and jet fuel. Corporal Maya Chen stood on the tarmac, her hands gripping the straps of her pack so tightly her knuckles had gone white. At 24 years old, she'd spent the last 3 years of her Army career doing exactly what she'd signed up for: logistics, inventory management, supply chain coordination, moving ammunition and equipment from point A to point B safe, predictable, far from the front lines. Until today. "Chen, load up," Staff Sergeant Ramirez shouted over the roar of the Black Hawk's rotors spinning to life. She jogged toward the helicopter, her pack heavy with ammunition, 60 pounds of magazines, belts, and grenades that weren't meant for her weapon. They were for the shooters, the real warriors. As she climbed into the crew compartment, Maya found herself surrounded by them. 6 Navy SEALs from Team 7, their faces painted in camouflage, their gear worn and battle-tested. They moved with an economy of motion that spoke of countless missions, an unspoken language of glances and nods. They checked their weapons with the kind of casual confidence that only came from knowing those tools could mean the difference between life and death. Maya felt like an imposter. She strapped into her seat, trying to make herself small, invisible. Across from her sat a SEAL who looked like he was carved from granite. His name tape read MORRSON, team leader, she'd been told. Lieutenant Commander Jack Morrison, call sign Reaper. The kind of operator whose reputation preceded him. 3 combat deployments, Silver Star. The guy who'd led the rescue of those aid workers in Helmand Province last year. Morrison caught her staring. His eyes, cold gray in the dim cabin light, assessed her for exactly 2 seconds before dismissing her as irrelevant. Not hostile, just not worth his attention. Maya looked away, heat creeping up her neck. "First time this close to the action, Corporal." The voice came from her left. Another SEAL, younger than Morrison but with the same predatory stillness. His name tape read TORRES. "Yes, Petty Officer," Maya answered, keeping her voice steady. Torres offered a slight smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Stay behind cover, keep your head on a swivel, and hand me ammunition when I call for it. Specific types. I'll use hand signals if comms are down." He patted the long rifle case secured beside him. "I'm the designated marksman. You're my ammo bearer for this op." "Understood," Maya said, though her heart hammered against her ribs. Torres pulled his rifle from its case with the reverence some people reserved for religious artifacts. An M110 semi-automatic sniper system. Maya recognized it from training manuals. 20-round magazine, 7.62 rounds, effective range beyond 800 meters. Torres began a meticulous inspection, checking the scope, testing the bolt, examining each surface for dirt or damage. "She's been with me for 2 years, Torres said, noticing Maya watching. "Saved my life in Kandahar, and about 40 other guys who didn't even know they were in danger." He looked up, his expression serious. "Every round counts out there, every single one. That's why I need you focused, not panicking, not freezing. Can you do that?" Maya swallowed hard. "Yes, Petty Officer." "Good." Torres returned to his weapon. The Black Hawk's engines changed pitch. The crew chief gave a hand signal, and the helicopter lifted off, the ground falling away beneath them. Through the open door, Maya watched Bagram shrink into a collection of lights in an ocean of darkness. They banked east, toward the mountains, toward the Kunar province, toward a valley where, according to intelligence, a high-value Taliban commander named Khalid Samed was hiding in a fortified compound. Morrison's voice crackled over the internal comms. "Listen up. Target is a priority 1 capture. Intel suggests he's planning a major attack on coalition forces within the next 72 hours. We go in, we grab him, we get out, clean and simple." He paused. "The compound is in a valley with limited egress. If this goes sideways, it goes sideways fast. Stay sharp." The SEALs responded with silent nods. Maya noticed none of them looked nervous. If anything, they looked bored. This was Tuesday for them. The flight took 40 minutes. Maya watched the landscape transform beneath them, flat desert giving way to jagged mountains, their peaks barely visible against the lightning sky. The Hindu Kush Range, beautiful and deadly. The helicopter descended into a valley, following the contours of the terrain, flying low to avoid detection. Through the door, Maya spotted the compound. A cluster of mud brick buildings surrounded by a perimeter wall, sitting on the valley floor like a fortress. The intelligence photos hadn't captured how isolated it was, ringed by mountains on three sides, a single road snaking in from the south. 2 minutes, the pilot called back. The SEALs went through final checks with practice synchronization, magazines seated, night vision adjusted, comms tested. Torres caught Maya's eye one more time. Remember, behind cover, stay low, hand me ammo when I call, specific types. Don't try to be a hero, just do your job. I will, Maya promised. The helicopter flared, touching down on a ridgeline overlooking the compound from the north. The SEALs poured out like water, each man moving to his designated position. Maya followed Torres, her legs shaky on the uneven ground. He led her to a cluster of boulders about 200 yards from where the helicopter had dropped them. Here, Torres said, pointing to a depression behind the largest rock. This is your position. Don't leave it unless I tell you to. Understand? Yes, petty officer. Torres moved 15 feet ahead, settling into a prone position with his rifle. Below them, Maya could see the assault team, 4 SEALs moving like ghosts through the pre-dawn darkness toward the compound. The sun was just beginning to color the eastern sky orange and pink. It would have been beautiful if Maya's heart wasn't trying to beat its way out of her chest. She arranged the ammunition according to Tor's specifications, magazines on the left, belts on the right, grenades secured but accessible. She was just support, just carrying ammunition. Tor's was the weapon. These SEALs were the warriors. She was just here to help. Chen, Torres whispered without looking back. Breathe, you're going to be fine. Maya realized she'd been holding her breath. She exhaled slowly, trying to calm her racing pulse. Dawn broke fully over the mountains, golden light spilling into the valley. The compound sat silent below them, peaceful even. Maya checked her watch, 5:47 hours. The mission had officially begun. And for the first time in her military career, Corporal Maya Chen was close enough to combat to smell it, cordite and fear, and something electric in the air that she couldn't quite name. She had no idea that in less than 3 hours, everything she thought she knew about herself would be shattered on this ridgeline. No idea that the rifle Torres held so carefully would soon be in her hands. No idea that today, she would stop being just someone who carried ammunition and become something else entirely. The valley held its breath, waiting. The first 2 hours passed in a strange, suspended silence. Maya watched Tor's work, fascinated despite her fear. He barely moved, just minute adjustments of his shoulders, slight shifts of his cheek against the rifle stock. His breathing was so controlled it seemed mechanical. In for 4 counts, hold for 2, out for 4. She found herself unconsciously matching his rhythm. Mag, Torres whispered without taking his eye from the scope. Maya's hands moved before her brain fully processed the command. She pulled a fresh 20-round magazine from her pack and placed it in his extended left hand. He swapped magazines in less than 2 seconds, the empty going into a dump pouch on his vest. Smooth, practiced, no wasted motion. Through her binoculars, Maya could see the assault team positioned around the compound. They'd moved into place without triggering any alarms, 4 shadowy figures against mud brick walls, barely distinguishable from the landscape itself. The sun had fully risen now, painting the valley in harsh morning light that made every rock and crevice stand out in sharp relief. Target building is the one with the blue door, Torres murmured, more to himself than to her. 2nd floor, northeast corner. Intel says that's where Samed sleeps. He adjusted his scope fractionally. Guard on the roof, southeast corner, looks sleepy. Maya found the guard in her binoculars. A man in traditional Afghan dress, an AK-47 slung across his back, leaning against a wall. He did look sleepy. Or bored. Just a guy doing a job he probably hated, not knowing that in the rocks above him, a Navy SEAL had him centered in a rifle scope. "How many people are you watching right now?" Maya asked quietly. "7," Tors replied without hesitation. "Roof guard. 2 guys in the courtyard who think they're hidden behind that truck. Another one in the second-story window of the western building, probably their designated lookout, but he's looking the wrong direction. 3 more moving around inside the main building. I can see them through the windows." Maya looked again. She could barely make out the 2 by the truck, and she couldn't see any of the others Tors had mentioned. "How do you?" "Practice," Tors said, "and good glass." He tapped his scope. "This Leopold Mark IV cost more than your car. It better let me see through walls." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "Belt feed." Maya handed him a linked ammunition belt. He didn't need it yet. His magazine still had rounds, but she understood. He was prepping for contingencies, always thinking 3 moves ahead. "You're good at this," Tors said suddenly. "The supply thing you anticipate." The compliment caught Maya off guard. "Thank you, petty officer." "Tors is fine. We're in the dirt together." He shifted slightly, tracking something Maya couldn't see. "You always wanted to be in logistics." It seemed like a strange time for conversation, but Maya sensed he was trying to keep her calm, engaged. "My dad was a supply sergeant, Army." He made it sound important, not glamorous, but important, making sure the right equipment gets to the right people at the right time. She paused, "Saving lives from the rear." "Nothing wrong with that." Tor's voice was matter of fact. "This whole machine stops without people like you, and your dad was right, it is important." He was quiet for a moment. "But you never wanted to carry the rifle yourself." Maya considered the question. "I don't think I have that in me. What you do, taking a life from 800 meters away." She hesitated. How do you deal with it?" Tors was silent for so long Maya thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "I tell myself that the person in my scope is trying to kill people I'm responsible for protecting. My teammates, civilians. If I don't take the shot, someone innocent probably dies." He exhaled slowly. "It's not easy. Anyone who says it is lying or broken. But it's necessary, and I'd rather carry that weight than let someone else carry the weight of losing people they could have saved." Before Maya could respond, Morrison's voice crackled in their earpieces. "Eyes on target. Sam had just entered the Blue Door building with 2 escorts. We're moving in 3 mics." Tor's entire demeanor shifted. The contemplative soldier vanished, replaced by pure focused intensity. "Copy. Overwatch ready." Maya felt her heart rate spike again. 3 minutes. This was really happening. She watched the assault team begin their approach, flowing like water through shadows, using every bit of cover. They moved in pairs, one covering while the other advanced. It was like watching a deadly ballet. "First guard going down," Tors whispered. His rifle coughed, a suppressed shot that sounded like a heavy book dropping. Through her binoculars, Maya saw the roof guard crumple silently. Clean. The assault team breached the Blue Door. Maya heard nothing, no explosions, no gunfire. They'd gone in quiet, professional, exactly as planned. "This is going too smooth," Tors muttered. "Isn't that good?" Maya asked. "In my experience, when everything goes perfect, that's when the universe decides to." He stopped mid-sentence. "Wait." Maya saw it too. Movement on the ridgeline opposite them. Then more movement. A lot of movement. Men with weapons emerging from positions that should have been empty. They'd been there all along, hidden, waiting. "Reaper we've got," Tors started. The radio exploded with Morrison's voice. "It's a trap. All units, we are compromised. Multiple hostiles converging." Automatic gunfire erupted from every direction. The valley that had been so peaceful seconds ago transformed into a kill zone. Red tracers arced through the morning air. RPGs launched from hidden positions. their smoke trails drawing white lines against the blue sky. The assault team was pinned in the compound courtyard. Maya could see muzzle flashes everywhere, the rooftops, the windows, the walls, dozens of fighters, maybe more. "They were waiting for us," Tors said, his voice ice cold. He started engaging targets, his rifle barking in rapid succession. "Chen, get ready. This is going to get ugly fast." Maya's hands shook as she prepared fresh magazines. All her calm from the past 2 hours evaporated. This wasn't training. This wasn't controlled. This was chaos, and they were in the middle of it. Tors fired again and again, each shot deliberate and precise. Across the valley, fighters fell. But for every one he dropped, 2 more appeared. They'd walked into an ambush that must have involved 50 or 60 Taliban fighters, maybe more. "Reaper, I count at least 40 hostiles," Tors reported, his voice steady despite the hell erupting around them. "You need to extract now." "Working on it." Morrison's response was punctuated by the distinctive crack of close-quarters gunfire. "Keep them off us." Tors increased his rate of fire. Empty magazines piled up beside him. Maya fed him ammunition as fast as she could, magazines, belts, whatever he needed. Her fear became mechanical action. Grab, hand off. Grab, hand off. Don't think, just move. Then she heard it, a sound that made her blood turn to ice. A high-pitched whistle getting louder, closer. Tors heard it too, his head snapped up, eyes going wide. "RPG, get down." The explosion hit before Maya could move. The world turned white. That was Maya's first thought when the RPG detonated 8 feet from their position. Not an explosion, not sound, just blinding white light that consumed everything, vision, thought, existence itself. Then came the pressure wave, an invisible fist that picked her up and slammed her against the boulder behind her. The impact drove the air from her lungs. Her helmet cracked against stone. For a moment, maybe a second, maybe an hour, Maya existed in a strange pocket of silence where nothing made sense. She couldn't hear, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Then the world came rushing back. Sound first, a high-pitched ringing that drowned out everything else. Then slowly other noises filtered through, gunfire distant and distorted like hearing it underwater, shouting, screaming, the crackle of flames. Maya's vision cleared, smoke, dust, the acrid smell of explosives. She was on her back, staring up at the impossibly blue Afghan sky. Her body felt wrong, heavy and disconnected, like it belonged to someone else. "Move," her brain commanded. "Get up, move." She rolled onto her side, gasping. Her chest burned as air finally filled her lungs again. The ringing in her ears started to fade, replaced by the very real sounds of a battle that had just gotten exponentially worse. "Tors," she croaked, then louder, "Tors." He was 5 feet away, sprawled on his back. At first, Maya thought he'd just been knocked down like her. Then she saw the blood. So much blood. It pooled beneath him, dark and spreading fast. Shrapnel had torn through his left shoulder and neck, jagged pieces of metal embedded in flesh. His tactical vest had saved his chest, but his shoulder looked like raw meat. Blood pulsed from his neck wound in rhythmic spurts. Arterial bleeding. The thought came from some distant corner of her mind where training still functioned. He's going to bleed out. Maya crawled to him, her hands already reaching for the trauma kit on her belt. Tor's eyes were open, conscious but glazed with shock. His mouth moved, trying to form words, but only a wet gurgling sound came out. "Don't talk." Maya pressed gauze against the neck wound, applying pressure with shaking hands. The white fabric turned crimson immediately. "Don't you dare die on me, Tors." His hand gripped her wrist with surprising strength. He pulled her closer, and this time when he spoke, the words came out in a desperate rasp. "The rifle. Chen, you have to." "No," Maya said automatically. I'm keeping you alive. You're going to be fine." The radio on her vest erupted with Morrison's voice, distorted by static and desperation. "Overwatch, we need fire support. They've got a technical inbound with a 50 cal. Tors, do you copy? Maya grabbed the radio with one blood-slick hand while keeping pressure on Tor's wound with the other. This is Chen. Tors is down. He's hit bad. Can he shoot? Morrison's voice was pure command, no sympathy. No, he. Then you need to get on that rifle, Corporal, right now. The sound of gunfire intensified in the background. Someone screamed. They're bringing up a technical from the South Road. If that 50 cal gets into position, my entire team is dead. Do you understand? We need sniper support now. Maya's breath came in short, panicked gasps. She looked at Tor's rifle lying 3 feet away, half buried in debris from the explosion. Then at Tor's himself, pale and bleeding in her arms. Then down at the compound where she could see the assault team pinned behind what little cover they had. Muzzle flashes from every direction. They were being massacred. I can't, Maya whispered. I'm not a sniper, I'm not. Tor's hand found hers again, squeezing with the last of his strength. Blood bubbled at his lips when he spoke. You have to, Chen. Please, they'll die, all of them. I don't know how. Tears cut tracks through the dust on Maya's face. Tors, I've never even touched a sniper rifle. Then learn fast. His eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that cut through her panic. You're all they have. Movement caught Maya's eye. Through the smoke and chaos she saw it, a technical truck, a Toyota with a bed-mounted M2 Browning .50 caliber machine gun, rolling up the southern road toward the compound. 2 fighters rode in back, one climbing onto the gun mount. That weapon could cut through the SEAL's cover like paper. It could kill them all in seconds. The fighter on the gun was swinging it toward the compound, toward Morrison and his team. Maya's mind fractured into 1,000 pieces. Every instinct screamed at her to keep helping Tors, to call for medevac, to do anything except what they were asking. She was a logistics specialist. She counted bullets. She didn't fire them. She'd barely qualified with an M4 in basic training 3 years ago. The idea of picking up a precision rifle and engaging targets at 400 yards was insane. But Tor's blood was hot on her hands, and down in that compound, men were dying. Chen, Morrison's voice cracked with urgency. 30 seconds, that's all the time you have. Maya looked at Tors one more time. He managed the smallest nod. Go, he mouthed. Something broke inside her, or maybe something that had always been there finally surfaced. Maya pressed a fresh gauze pad against Tor's neck wound, grabbed his hand and placed it over the bandage. Keep pressure. You understand. Don't you die. Then she scrambled to the rifle. It was heavier than she'd imagined. The M110 SAS felt like it weighed 100 pounds as she dragged it to the firing position. Her hands, slippery with Tor's blood, struggled to grip properly. She dropped into a prone position, the way she'd seen Tors do it 1,000 times in the past 2 hours. The scope pressed against her eye. Through it, the world magnified into sharp, terrifying detail. She found the technical 400 yards down the slope. The gunner was mounted now, his hands on the butterfly trigger, swinging the barrel toward the compound where Morrison's team was trapped. Maya's heart hammered so hard she thought it might explode. The crosshairs danced wildly, she couldn't keep them steady. Her breathing was all wrong. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. The rifle felt alien, uncontrollable. Chen, Morrison screamed in her ear, now. The gunner had the angle. His finger moved to the trigger. Maya put the crosshairs somewhere near his center mass and pulled the trigger. The rifle kicked against her shoulder, harder than she expected. Through the scope, she saw the bullet impact, 2 feet low and a foot to the right, sparking off the technical's bed. Complete miss. The gunner's head snapped toward her position. He'd seen her muzzle flash, seen exactly where she was. Now his 50 cal was turning, tracking toward her, toward Tors bleeding out behind her. Maya chambered another round, her hands trembling so violently she could barely work the bolt. I can't do this, she whispered to no one, to God, to herself. I can't do this. Behind her, Tor's voice, barely audible over the gunfire. Yes, you can. The technical's gun elevated, pointing right at her. Maya had seconds to prove him right. Or die trying, time fractured into crystalline moments. Maya saw the technical's .50 caliber machine gun tracking toward her position, saw the gunner's hands adjusting the weapon, saw the distinctive muzzle of that weapon, a weapon that could punch through engine blocks, that could cut a human being in half. Her finger was on the trigger. The crosshairs bounced across the scope's view like a drunk butterfly. She couldn't steady them, couldn't breathe, couldn't think past the animal terror flooding her system. She was going to die. Torres was going to die. Morrison and his team were going to die, all because she couldn't make one shot. Chen, Morrison's voice in her ear wasn't angry anymore. It was desperate. Please. The word please from a man like Morrison, a man who probably hadn't begged for anything in his life, cut through Maya's panic like a blade. She forced her eyes closed, blocked out the scope, the technical, the entire valley. For one heartbeat, she went somewhere else, back to basic training, back to the firing range where a grizzled drill sergeant named Kowalski had stood behind her while she struggled with her M4 qualification. "You're trying too hard, Chen," he'd said. "Stop fighting the weapon, stop fighting yourself. Fear is just noise. You can choose not to listen." Choose not to listen. Maya's eyes snapped open. The scope came back into view. The technical hadn't moved. The gunner was still adjusting, maybe 3 seconds from firing. 3 seconds that felt like 3 lifetimes. This time Maya didn't try to force the crosshairs to steady. She let them drift, watched their pattern, breathing. It was all about breathing. Torres had shown her. 4 counts in, hold for 2, 4 counts out. In 2, 3, 4. Hold 2. Out 2, 3, 4. The crosshair's wild dance became a rhythm, a pattern she could predict. At the bottom of her exhale, they settled for just a fraction of a second over the gunner's chest. Maya squeezed, didn't pull the trigger. The rifle kicked. Through the scope, she saw the gunner's body jerk backward, saw him collapse into the technical's bed, the .50 cal swinging wildly skyward, unfired. For a moment, Maya couldn't process what she'd seen. She'd hit him, actually hit him, at 400 yards, with a rifle she'd never fired before. "Yes," Morrison's shout exploded in her ear. "Good hit, Chen, but we're not done. 3 more fighters northwest corner of the compound. They've got angle on our medic. He's exposed." Maya swung the rifle left, scanning. The compound was a chaos of movement and smoke. Northwest corner. Where? She couldn't. There, 3 men in traditional Afghan dress, kneeling behind a low wall with AK-47s, firing at something she couldn't see. One of Morrison's team, probably. The medic. A man with a name and a family and a life that depended on what she did in the next 5 seconds. Maya centered on the first fighter. The crosshairs were steadier now, though her hands still shook. She controlled her breathing. Bottom of the exhale, squeeze. The rifle spoke. The fighter dropped. She didn't think, didn't process, just moved to the next target. Breath, squeeze, he fell. The third fighter realized what was happening. His head swiveled, searching for her. For a heartbeat, Maya saw his face through the scope. Young, maybe younger than her. Terror in his eyes as he understood death was coming for him from a direction he couldn't see. Maya squeezed the trigger. He collapsed like a puppet with cut strings. 3 men, 3 shots, 3 lives erased from existence by her decisions, her actions. The magnitude of it threatened to drown her, but there was no time for horror, no space for the weight of what she'd done. "Chen, you're a goddamn hero." Morrison's voice was fierce with relief. "Keep scanning. They're regrouping, but you've got them scared." Maya worked the bolt, chambering a fresh round. Her hands were steadier now. Not calm, she was far from calm, but functional. The rifle felt less alien. Its weight, its kick, the way the scope framed the world. She was learning it in real time under fire with lives hanging on every decision. She scanned the compound, found two more fighters trying to flank Morrison's position from the east, engaged, both down, found an RPG team setting up on a rooftop, took out the gunner before he could fire. His partner fled. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. Time had no meaning in the scope's narrow view. There was only the next target, the next threat, the next trigger pull. Maya moved through it like a machine, some part of her brain taking over that knew exactly what needed to happen. She wasn't Maya Chen anymore. She wasn't a logistics specialist from San Diego who joined the army to pay for college. She was something else. Something that existed only in this moment, behind this rifle, making split-second decisions about who lived and who died. "We're moving," Morrison's voice cut through. "Covering fire, Chen, we're extracting with the target." Maya found the assault team through her scope. 4 SEALs moving as one, a 5th man, presumably Samad, zip-tied and being dragged between them. They moved from cover to cover, trading fire with the remaining Taliban fighters. Every time an enemy tried to get an angle on them, Maya was there first, watching, waiting, removing the threat. A fighter appeared in a second-story window, RPG on his shoulder. Maya fired. The man fell back into the darkness. Another fighter sprinted across the courtyard, trying to cut off the SEAL's escape route. Maya led him by 2 feet, accounting for movement. Fired. He went down. The radio crackled with the sound of a helicopter inbound. The extraction bird. Hope surged in Maya's chest. 60 seconds to pick up, the pilot's voice announced. But 60 seconds was an eternity in combat. The Taliban knew the SEALs were escaping. They emerged from every hiding place, throwing everything they had at Morrison's team. It was a wall of fire, a desperate attempt to prevent their commander from being taken. Maya fired until her barrel was hot enough to distort the air. Magazines emptied and were replaced without thought. She'd become an extension of the weapon, or maybe the weapon had become an extension of her. The distinction no longer mattered. Behind her, Tors made a sound, half groan, half gasp. Maya wanted to turn, wanted to check on him, but she couldn't. Not yet. Not while Morrison's team was still in danger. 30 seconds, the pilot called. A technical, a second one she hadn't seen, roared around the corner of the compound. The gunner was already on the 50 cal, and this one had the angle. Morrison's team was crossing open ground, completely exposed. Maya swung the rifle, found the gunner. He was turning the weapon, finger on the trigger. She had 1 shot, maybe half a second. This time there was no fear, no hesitation, just absolute clarity. Maya fired. The gunner slumped over his weapon. "We're up," Morrison shouted. The Black Hawk's roar filled the valley. Through her scope, Maya watched the SEALs pile into the helicopter, 4, 5, 6 bodies and Samad. The helicopter lifted off, banking hard to avoid ground fire. They were out, they were safe. Maya had done it. She'd kept them alive. The rifle slipped from her numb fingers. The adrenaline that had been holding her together evaporated all at once, leaving nothing but the crushing weight of what had just happened. She'd killed, how many? 6, 8, she'd lost count, had stopped counting. Maya turned to Tors. He was pale as snow, but his eyes were open. A weak smile crossed his blood-crusted lips. "Told you," he whispered, "you could shoot." Then his eyes rolled back and he went limp. "No, no, no, no." Maya grabbed Tors, shaking him. His head lolled to the side, lifeless. The gauze on his neck was completely soaked through, dark and heavy with blood. "Tors, David, stay with me." Her fingers found his throat, searching for a pulse. For 5 eternal seconds she felt nothing. Then there, weak, thready, but there. He was alive, barely. Maya's training kicked in with sudden, brutal clarity. She ripped open her trauma kit, hands moving with purpose now. Fresh gauze, pressure. She packed the neck wound, pressing hard enough to make Tor's unconscious body twitch. The bleeding slowed, not stopped. She couldn't stop arterial bleeding in the field, but slowed enough to buy him time. "Chen, what's your status?" Morrison's voice in her ear, calmer now but edged with concern. "Tor's is critical," Maya said, surprised by how steady her own voice sounded. "Arterial bleed, neck and shoulder. He's unconscious. He needs medevac now." "Roger that. Bird inbound to your position, ETA 3 minutes. Can you stabilize him?" "I'm trying." Maya worked as she spoke, applying a tourniquet to Tor's shoulder, knowing it wouldn't help the neck wound but might save the arm. She elevated his legs, fighting shock, checked his airway, did everything she could with the supplies she had. 3 minutes. He could die in 3 minutes. "Stay with me, Tors," Maya whispered, keeping pressure on his neck. "You don't get to die, not after making me do this. Not after turning me into," her voice broke. "Just stay with me." Around them, the battle had shifted. The Taliban fighters were pulling back, regrouping, or maybe just trying to survive. The ridge where Maya and Tors lay was suddenly, strangely quiet except for the distant crack of sporadic gunfire from the valley below. Maya became aware of things she'd completely blocked out during the shooting. The way her shoulder throbbed from the rifle's recoil, the ringing in her ears that wouldn't stop, the tremor in her hands that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with exhaustion and shock. And the bodies. Through the scope they'd been targets, threats, problems to be solved. Now looking down at the compound with her naked eyes, Maya could see what she'd done. Still forms scattered across the courtyard, slumped in windows, draped over walls. Human beings who would never go home, never see their families again because of her. The sound of rotor blades cut through her spiraling thoughts. A black hawk crested the ridge, flying fast and low. It flared hard, touching down 30 feet from their position. The crew chief jumped out with a stretcher, a Navy corpsman right behind him. "Move, Corporal," the corpsman shouted, dropping beside Tors. His hands replaced Maya's on the neck wound. "How long's he been out?" 2 minutes, maybe 3. Maya stepped back, her legs suddenly unsteady. "Arterial bleed, I couldn't." "You did good." The corpsman worked with practiced efficiency, starting an IV line, securing Tors to the stretcher. "Real good. He's got a chance because of you." They loaded Tors into the helicopter. The corpsman looked at Maya. "You coming?" Maya glanced down at the valley, the compound, the battlefield where she just killed more people in 20 minutes than she'd ever imagined killing in her entire life, where Tors' rifle lay in the dirt, still warm. "Yeah," she said quietly, "I'm coming." The flight back to Bagram took 30 minutes that felt like 30 seconds. Maya sat next to Tors' stretcher, watching the corpsman work to keep him alive. IV fluids, pressure bandages, constant monitoring. Tors' face was gray, his breathing shallow, but his pulse was still there. Weak, but there. Across from her sat Morrison. His face paint was streaked with sweat and dirt. Blood, not his own, stained his vest. He watched Maya with an expression she couldn't quite read. "How many?" Maya finally asked. "How many what?" "How many did I?" She couldn't finish the sentence. Morrison was quiet for a moment. 8 confirmed, maybe 2 more possibles. He leaned forward. 8 bad guys who would have killed me and my entire team without a second thought. You understand that, right? You saved 7 lives today, Chen. 7 Americans who are going to see their families again because of what you did. "I'm not a killer," Maya said. It came out as almost a question. "No," Morrison agreed. "You're not. Killers do it because they want to. You did it because you had to. Because when everything went to hell and the only trained sniper was bleeding out, you picked up a weapon you'd never fired and made shots that snipers with years of training would have been proud of." He paused. "You know what that makes you?" Maya shook her head. "A warrior, whether you wanted to be one or not." The word hit Maya like a physical blow. Warrior. It felt too big, too heavy. She was a supply clerk from San Diego who liked spreadsheets and inventory management. She wasn't. Except she was, because she'd done it. Despite the fear, despite having no training, despite every instinct screaming at her to run, when it mattered, when lives hung in the balance, she'd made the choice, had picked up the rifle, had pulled the trigger 8 times and ended 8 lives to save 7. The helicopter touched down at Bagram's medical facility. A full trauma team was waiting. They whisked Tors away on the stretcher, moving with organized urgency toward the surgical unit. Maya stood on the tarmac, covered in Tors' blood, her hands still shaking with residual adrenaline. Morrison appeared beside her. "Medical will want to check you out too. Make sure you're not injured." "I'm fine." "Physically, maybe." Morrison's voice softened slightly. "But what you did today, it changes you. Takes time to process. You should talk to someone." "What if I don't want to?" Maya heard the edge in her own voice. "What if I just want to go back to being the person I was this morning?" Morrison looked at her with something like sympathy. "That person doesn't exist anymore, Chen. She died on that ridge the moment you picked up Tors' rifle." He put a hand on her shoulder, the gesture awkward but genuine. "But the person you became, she's someone worth being. She's someone who does what needs doing, even when it's hard, even when it costs her something." He walked away, leaving Maya alone with the settling dust from the helicopter's rotors and thoughts that wouldn't stop spinning. She looked down at her hands. Tors' blood had dried into dark brown stains on her skin under her fingernails, evidence of what she'd done, what she'd become. A supply clerk who'd become a sniper. A woman who'd taken 8 lives to save 7. A person who discovered that, when pushed to the absolute limit, she was capable of things she'd never imagined. The question that haunted her as she walked toward the medical building wasn't whether she could do it again. The question was whether she just discovered who she really was, or lost herself entirely in the process. Behind her, the Afghan sun climbed higher in a sky that didn't care about the violence that had unfolded beneath it. The valley held its secrets. The dead remained dead. And Maya Chen walked forward into a future she no longer recognized, carrying the weight of 8 souls she'd sent into darkness, but also carrying the knowledge that 7 families would see their loved ones again. Morrison was right. That had to mean something. It had to. The medical exam was mechanical. A doctor shone lights in Maya's eyes, checked her vitals, asked questions she answered on autopilot. No, she wasn't dizzy. No, she hadn't been hit. Yes, she could hear him fine despite the ringing. No, she didn't need anything for pain. The doctor cleared her physically but made a note on her chart. Combat stress reaction screening recommended. He looked at her with professional concern. "You should talk to someone, Corporal. What you went through today." "I'm fine," Maya said. It was becoming her default response. "I'm fine." The universal lie told by people who were anything but fine. She left medical and walked through Bagram in a daze. The base bustled with normal activity, soldiers jogging in formation, supply trucks rumbling past, someone laughing at a joke she couldn't hear. The mundane rhythm of military life, unchanged and uncaring about what had happened in that valley. Maya felt like she was watching it all through glass, present but separate, here but not here. "Yo, Chen," a voice cut through her fog. Staff Sergeant Ramirez from her logistics unit jogged up, his face split in a grin. "Holy shit, everyone's talking about you. Is it true? You really took out 8 hostiles with Tors' rifle." Word traveled fast on a base, too fast. Yeah, I guess." "You guess?" Ramirez laughed, clapping her on the shoulder. The contact made Maya flinch. "Morrison's telling everyone you saved his entire team. Says you made shots that would make a trained sniper jealous. Chen, that's incredible. You're a goddamn hero." Hero? The word felt wrong. Heroes were supposed to feel triumphant, weren't they? Proud. Maya felt hollow, scooped out, like something essential had been removed from inside her and the empty space filled with static. "I need to go," she said. Ramirez's smile faltered. "You okay?" "I'm fine," Maya lied again, and walked away before he could ask more questions. She found herself at the wreck building, drawn there without conscious decision. The space was empty in the mid-afternoon heat. Maya sat on a worn couch, staring at nothing, trying to feel something beyond the numbness that had settled over her like a blanket. 8 people, 8 human beings who'd woken up this morning with no idea it was their last day alive. Did they have families, children? Were they monsters or just men fighting for what they believed in? Did it matter? They would have killed Morrison and his team, would have killed her and Tors. In that moment, it was simple mathematics, them or us. She'd chosen us. So why did she feel like she'd lost something irretrievable? Chen. Maya looked up. A chaplain stood in the doorway, his collar bright white against desert camouflage. He was maybe 50, with kind eyes that had seen too much. Mind if I sit? She shrugged. He took it as permission and settled into a chair across from her. I'm Chaplain Brooks, heard about what happened today, wanted to check on you. Did the doctor send you? Morrison did, actually. Brooks smiled slightly. Said you might need someone to talk to but probably wouldn't seek it out yourself. Maya was silent. What was there to say? That she'd killed 8 people and felt both guilty for taking their lives and proud that she'd saved her team. That she was terrified of how easily she'd made those shots once the fear subsided. That some part of her had felt powerful behind that rifle, and that scared her most of all. You don't have to talk, Brooks said gently. But I'll tell you what I've told every soldier who sat where you're sitting. Taking a life, even in combat, even when necessary, it changes you, leaves a mark, and pretending it doesn't will eat you alive from the inside out. What if I don't know how I feel? Maya's voice was barely a whisper. What if I'm just empty? That's shock, natural response to trauma. The feelings will come later, and when they do, they'll hit hard. Brooks leaned forward. When that happens, don't face it alone. Talk to someone, a counselor, a chaplain, a friend, anyone, because carrying that weight by yourself, it's too much for any person. Maya nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Brooks stood to leave, then paused. One more thing. What you did today, saving those men, that matters. Hold on to that when the dark thoughts come. You're not a killer, Corporal Chen. You're a protector. There's a difference. After he left, Maya sat alone with those words, protector. It sounded better than killer, noble even, but the 8 bodies in that valley were just as dead either way. She didn't know how long she sat there. Time felt meaningless. Eventually, her radio crackled. A message from the hospital. Tors was out of surgery and asking for her. Maya walked to the medical facility as the sun began its descent toward the mountains. The surgical ward was quiet, sterile, smelling of antiseptic. A nurse directed her to Tors' room. He looked impossibly small in the hospital bed, hooked up to IV lines and monitors. His left shoulder was heavily bandaged, his neck wrapped in gauze, but his eyes were open and clear when Maya entered. Chen, his voice was hoarse but steady, you came. Of course I came. Maya pulled a chair beside his bed. How are you feeling? Like I got hit by an RPG. He managed a weak smile. But alive, because of you, twice over, you kept me from bleeding out and you kept the Taliban from overrunning our position. His eyes locked onto hers with intensity that belied his injuries. Thank you. You don't need to thank me. Yes, I do. You saved 7 lives today, Chen. Mine, Morrison's, the entire team. He paused, studying her face. But you're not okay, are you? Maya looked away. I killed 8 people today. I didn't want to, didn't plan to, but I did it, and part of me, her voice caught. Part of me didn't even hesitate after the first couple shots. It became mechanical, easy almost. What does that make me? Tors was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was gentle but firm. It makes you someone who can function under pressure, someone who does what needs doing even when it costs them something. Chen, listen to me. What you felt up there, that calmness, that focus, that's not you being a monster. That's you being a warrior. Your mind went where it needed to go to keep people alive. But what if I'm not a warrior? What if I'm just a supply clerk who got lucky? Luck doesn't make 8 consecutive hits at 400 yards with a rifle you'd never fired before. Torres reached out, his hand finding hers. You didn't just pull triggers today. You made split-second decisions under fire that most trained snipers would struggle with. You prioritized targets, adapted to changing situations, kept your head while everyone else was losing theirs. He squeezed her hand weakly. That's not training, Chen. That's not luck. That's who you are when everything else gets stripped away. And I know it doesn't feel like a gift right now. I know you're hurting. But the world needs people like you, people who can stand in the gap when it matters most. Maya felt tears finally breaking through the numbness. I don't know if I can do this again, if I can be that person again. You don't have to decide now, Torres said. Take time, process, heal, but know this: you have a gift, and gifts like yours, they can save lives. A nurse appeared in the doorway. Visiting hours are ending, Corporal. Maya stood, but Torres held onto her hand for one more moment. Morrison's going to offer you something, an opportunity. Don't say no without really thinking about it. Promise me. I promise. Walking back to her barracks under the darkening Afghan sky, Maya felt the first cracks forming in the numbness. Emotions waded beneath like water behind a dam: grief, pride, horror, satisfaction, guilt, purpose. All of it churning together, threatening to drown her. Tomorrow, she knew, those waters would break through. Tomorrow, she'd have to face what she'd done and who she'd become. But tonight, she let herself hold onto one truth. 7 families would see their loved ones again. 7 mothers would get to hug their sons. 7 wives would welcome their husbands home. 7 sets of children wouldn't grow up without fathers. Because when Maya Chen was pushed beyond every limit she thought she had, she'd found something inside herself that she never knew existed. Morrison had called her a warrior. Torres had called her a protector. Brooks had called her someone who'd been changed forever. They were all right, and none of them had the complete picture. Maya Chen wasn't sure who she was anymore. But she was beginning to suspect that finding out would define the rest of her life. The nightmare started on the 3rd night. Maya would be back on that ridge behind the rifle, watching through the scope. But this time, when she pulled the trigger, the faces in the crosshairs weren't enemy fighters. They were her father, her sister, Torres, people she loved, falling one by one, and she couldn't stop pulling the trigger. She'd wake up gasping, her sheets soaked with sweat, Torres' blood still vivid on her hands, even though she'd scrubbed them raw days ago. The base counselor said it was normal, PTSD symptoms, combat stress. She gave Maya techniques, breathing exercises, grounding methods, journaling. They helped marginally, but nothing could erase the faces, the 8 souls she'd sent into darkness. On the 5th day, Morrison found her in the logistics warehouse where she'd been reassigned to light duty. She was counting ammunition. The irony wasn't lost on her when he appeared in the doorway. Got a minute, Chen? They walked to a quiet corner of the base, near the perimeter wall where the Hindu Kush mountains loomed in the distance. The same mountains where everything had changed. How are you holding up? Morrison asked. I'm fine, Maya said automatically, then caught herself. Actually, no, I'm not fine. I'm having nightmares. I can't stop seeing their faces, and part of me feels guilty for being good at something that involves killing people. Morrison nodded like he'd expected this. I felt the same way after my first combat action. Killed 3 Taliban fighters in a firefight in Helmand. I was 23, fresh SEAL, thought I had it all figured out. He stared at the mountains. Threw up afterward, couldn't eat for 2 days. Thought it meant I wasn't cut out for this life. What changed? My team leader told me something I've never forgotten. He said, the day killing becomes easy is the day you need to quit. The fact that it bothers you means you're still human, means you understand the weight of what we do. Morrison looked at her. You're supposed to feel this way, Chen. If you didn't, I'd be worried. Is that why you're here? To check on my mental state. Partly, Morrison pulled a folder from his vest, but also to give you this. Orders came down from SOCOM. They want to offer you an opportunity. Maya took the folder, her hands trembling slightly. Inside was an official letter with the Special Operations Command letterhead. She read it twice, not quite believing the words. Corporal Maya Chen is hereby offered placement in the Special Operations Support Program, pending successful completion of Scout Sniper School. Sniper School, Maya's voice was barely a whisper. They want me to become a sniper. Not just any sniper. They want to fast-track you into Special Operations Support. You'd work directly with SEAL teams, Ranger battalions, Delta Force, the best of the best. Morrison's expression was neutral, carefully not influencing her. It's an honor most soldiers never receive, Chen, especially someone outside a combat MOS. Maya stared at the letter, feeling the weight of what it represented. A complete change of trajectory. A different life than the one she'd imagined when she joined the army to pay for college. I need to think about this. Take your time. You've got 72 hours to decide. Morrison turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, you're one of the most naturally gifted shooters I've ever seen, and I've worked with the best snipers in the world. That kind of talent, that kind of composure under pressure, it's rare. Don't waste it. After he left, Maya sat alone with the letter and the impossible choice it represented. The next day she visited Tors again. He was recovering well, sitting up in bed, his color back to normal. When she told him about the offer, his face lit up. You have to take it. Do I? Maya sank into the visitor's chair. David, I didn't join the army to kill people. I joined to support the mission, to help from the rear. This, she gestured at the letter, this changes everything. It doesn't change who you are, it just reveals who you've always been. Tors leaned forward intently. Chen, most people freeze in combat. They panic. They make mistakes. You didn't. You stepped up and made shots that saved lives. That's not something that can be taught. It's either in you or it isn't. But what if I don't want it to be in me? Tors was quiet for a long moment. Then you'll spend the rest of your life wondering what if. Wondering if you could have saved more lives, made more of a difference. His eyes held hers. You can go back to logistics. No shame in that. Carry ammunition, manage supplies, serve honorably. Or you can carry something heavier, the responsibility of standing between danger and the people who can't protect themselves. That's a hell of a weight. It is, but I think you're strong enough to carry it. That evening Maya called her father, Staff Sergeant Rhett. James Chen answered on the second ring, his voice warm with surprise. Maya, is everything okay? She told him everything. The mission, Tors going down, the rifle, the 8 men she'd killed, the offer, all of it spilling out in a rush of words she hadn't planned. Her father was silent for a long time after she finished. Dad. I'm here, sweetheart, just thinking. She heard him take a breath. You know why I chose logistics, why I pushed you toward it. Because it's important. Because someone has to do the behind-the-scenes work. That's part of it, but the real reason, his voice grew softer. I was scared of combat, scared of being the one who had to pull the trigger, so I found a way to serve that kept me at a safe distance. He paused. I never regretted it, but I also never had to wonder if I could have done more. You, Maya, you've already answered that question. You know you can. Now you have to decide if you will. What would you do? It's not my choice to make, but I'll tell you this. I'm proud of you no matter what you decide. If you come home and manage inventory for the next 20 years, I'm proud. If you become a sniper and spend your career in harm's way, I'm proud. His voice cracked slightly. You saved 7 lives, Maya. 7 families got to keep their sons because you did something impossibly hard. That's already more than most people will ever do. After they hung up, Maya sat in the darkness of her barracks, the letter on her lap. She thought about Tors bleeding out on that ridge, about Morrison and his team pinned down in the compound, about the 8 men she'd killed and the 7 she'd saved. She thought about the rifle in her hands and how, after the initial terror, it had felt almost natural, like an extension of her will, like it belonged there. She thought about spending the rest of her career counting bullets instead of firing them. Safe, predictable, always wondering if she could have made more of a difference. And she thought about standing in that gap again, being the person between danger and those who needed protection, carrying the weight that Torres had described, heavy, yes, but meaningful. Maya Chen had spent 24 years believing she knew who she was. Then one day on an Afghan ridge had shattered that certainty. The woman she'd been that morning, the logistics specialist who just wanted to serve safely from the rear, no longer existed. The question wasn't whether she could become a sniper. The question was whether she had the courage to embrace what she'd already become. Maya looked at the letter one more time, then reached for a pen. Her hand hovered over the acceptance line for just a moment. Then, with surprising steadiness, she signed her name. Corporal Maya Chen, future scout sniper, protector of those who couldn't protect themselves. Warrior. The choice was made. Now came the hard part, proving she deserved it. 6 months later, Maya stood in the desert heat at Marine Corps Base Quantico, her legs burning from holding a prone position for the past 3 hours. The instructor paced behind her, his boots crunching on gravel inches from her head. "You're drifting left, Chen. Compensate." Maya adjusted, her muscles screaming in protest. This was day 43 of Scout Sniper School, and every day had been harder than the last. Of the 45 candidates who'd started, only 28 remained. 17 had quit or been dropped, unable to handle the physical demands, the mental pressure, or the absolute precision required. Maya had almost been number 18. It happened on week 4 during a stalking exercise. She'd spent 6 hours crawling 400 meters through underbrush, moving so slowly that observers with binoculars couldn't detect her movement. When she finally reached her firing position, the instructor declared she'd been spotted twice. Failed exercise. Maya had lain there in the dirt, exhausted and frustrated, ready to quit. This was impossible. She wasn't a trained infantry soldier. She was a logistics specialist who'd gotten lucky once. What was she trying to prove? Then she'd remembered Torres, pale and bleeding on that ridge, trusting her with his rifle. Remembered Morrison's voice screaming for help. Remembered the 7 men who'd gone home to their families because she'd made an impossible choice. She'd gotten up, brushed herself off, and told the instructor she was ready to try again. Now, 3 months later, Maya was one of the top performers in her class. Not the strongest. There were men who could outrun her, outcarry her. Not the most experienced. Most of her classmates had combat infantry backgrounds. But when it came to marksmanship, to reading wind and elevation, to making the shot when it counted, Maya Chen had earned her place. "Fire when ready," the instructor said. Maya controlled her breathing. The target was 800 meters downrange, barely visible in the heat shimmer. She'd learned to read the mirage, to use it instead of fighting it. Learned to become one with the rifle, to feel each shot before it happened. She squeezed the trigger. Through the scope, she watched the target marker flip. Center mass hit. "Good shot, Chen." Again. Again and again and again, until the rifle was as natural as breathing, until she could make the shot exhausted, cold, hungry, stressed, until there was no gap between decision and action. That's what sniper school had taught her, not just how to shoot, but how to be the weapon the mission needed. How to carry the weight of life-and-death decisions with steadiness and purpose. Graduation day arrived with typical military ceremony. 45 candidates had started. 23 stood in formation wearing the dress blues that would soon bear the Scout Sniper qualification badge. Maya was one of only 3 women, and the only one who'd come from outside a combat MOS. In the crowd of families and friends, Maya spotted 2 familiar faces. Morrison in his dress whites, standing tall and proud, And Tors, his arm still in a sling but looking healthy, grinning like he'd just won the lottery. They'd flown across the country to be here, for her. The commandant stepped to the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, these warriors before you have completed one of the most demanding courses in military training. They have proven themselves capable of making impossible shots under impossible conditions. They have earned the title of Scout Sniper, a title that carries with it tremendous responsibility and honor. One by one, names were called. Each graduate stepped forward to receive their certification and Scout Sniper badge. Maya's heart hammered as her turn approached. Corporal Maya Chen. She marched forward, spine straight, eyes forward. The commandant pinned the badge to her uniform, a crossed rifle with a superimposed S, the symbol of her transformation. Congratulations, Scout Sniper Chen. The words hit her with unexpected force. Scout Sniper Chen, not logistics specialist, not supply clerk, sniper. After the ceremony, Morrison and Tors found her in the crowd of celebrating graduates and families. Knew you'd make it, Tors said, pulling her into a careful one-armed hug. Knew it from that first shot on the ridge. Top of your class in marksmanship, Morrison added, actually smiling, a rare sight. The instructors say you're one of the best natural shooters they've seen in years. JSOC is already requesting you for a team placement. Joint Special Operations Command wants me. Maya felt dizzy. They want the woman who made 8 consecutive hits with a weapon she'd never fired, under conditions that would break most trained snipers. Morrison's expression grew serious. You earned this, Chen. Every bit of it. Don't ever doubt that. That evening, alone in her barracks for the last time before her new assignment, Maya stood before a mirror in her dress blues. The Scout Sniper badge gleamed on her chest. She looked different than she had 6 months ago. Harder, leaner, more confident. But also the same in ways that mattered. Still, the woman who joined the army to serve. Still the daughter of a supply sergeant who believed in supporting the mission. Still someone who valued every life, both those she protected and those she'd been forced to take. She recited the sniper's creed quietly, words she'd memorized weeks ago but only now truly understood. My training is never complete. I will learn from my mistakes and wins of others, and every chance I have, I will make changes to improve. Maya thought about that terrified logistics specialist on the Afghan ridge, her hands shaking as she picked up Tor's rifle. That woman had believed she wasn't capable of this, believed she didn't have it in her. She'd been wrong. But she also hadn't been transformed into someone else. She'd simply discovered what had always been there, the capacity to stand between danger and those who needed protection, the strength to make impossible choices, the will to carry a weight most people would never understand. I am a Scout Sniper. I will never allow my country to be disgraced. I will guard everything within the limits that are placed in my hands, so help me God. Tomorrow, Maya would report to Fort Bragg for assignment with a SEAL team. She'd be back in the field, back behind a rifle, back making the shots that kept people alive. It wouldn't be easy. The nightmares still came sometimes, faces in the scope, blood on her hands. She'd learned to live with them, to understand they were the price of protecting others, the weight she'd chosen to carry. But as Maya looked at herself in the mirror, at the Scout Sniper badge, at the woman she'd become, she felt something she hadn't expected. Peace. She wasn't just someone who carried ammunition anymore. She was the ammunition, the precision instrument that made the difference between mission success and failure, between life and death. Maya Chen had found her calling on an Afghan ridge when a SEAL went down, and she became the sniper. Now she was ready to answer that calling wherever it led. The warrior's path stretched before her, challenging and dangerous and meaningful. And she would walk it with purpose, skill, and the knowledge that every shot she made in anger carried the weight of 7 lives saved. That had to be enough. It was enough. The end.
Son contento Zino, sono veramente contento, lo sai, è una cosa che mi piace tanto dire. Quando avete una passione e vi viene fuori quella cosa di essere curiosi come un bambino, contenti come un bambino, entusiasti come un bambino, è una cosa meravigliosa. È una cosa veramente bella, Zino, sono proprio contento. E il tuo, eh? E il tuo. Non è detto che magari non riuscirai un giorno a fare qualcosa, patato, eh.